Hey everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren, and in this video I am going to be making over this dresser and taking you along for the ride. I got this piece on Facebook Marketplace for $75, which is pretty typical in my area. I usually try not to spend more than $100 on a single dresser, so $75 was pretty reasonable in my opinion. And we're going to be adding some fun things on this dresser to make it a little bit more, I don't know, just not so plain. I love these dressers that are such a blank slate, and there's so much that you can do to work with this dresser to bring it a little bit more modern. And so the first thing that I'm going to be doing is removing the hardware. And these are nice ring pulls, but I am personally not a huge fan of this style of pull. I will probably just donate it to our next door neighbors over at Thrifties so that they can resell them. But sometimes you can keep the hardware that's on there and save a little bit of money. So if you like the original hardware, you can totally do that as well. So a lot of times dressers come to me and their drawers are all in a different order than they really should be. And for this specific dresser, I noticed that the drawers with the velvet are supposed to be on the top row. So I want to go ahead and change that around a little bit, and some of these were not on the top row like they were supposed to be. But I also need to make sure that they're gonna fit appropriately and slide in and out nicely without bumping anything. It's a lot easier to get these in line and in order when the dresser is not painted yet or worked on and is still, you know, in the early stages. That way you don't have to worry about taking drawers in and out and messing up any paint job from going in and out so many times. I think this should be, oh, perfect. All right, now we can take all the drawers out, clean, and label everything as well. Okay, I'm gonna be cleaning with some simple green today and the white rags. I always use these white rags to clean because they're super easy to just grab and dispose of. You could always use like a washcloth or something like that as well, as long as you get it all wet. And for the cleaner, really any degreasing cleaner is going to be just fine for a furniture flip. The goal is that it has a degreaser in it because you want to get the oily surface off of there. You know, people use dressers. Our hands are oily. Our lives are just oily and dusty. So we just want to make sure that we're starting with a fresh, clean slate. Next step, I am going to be doing a few repairs. There's really not a lot of scratches or anything. It's actually something that came as a part of the dresser when it was originally made that I want to get rid of. And it's these really weird, I think it's technically to like try and mimic a real true wood grain, like its imperfections, but it's so it's done so like, I don't even know what to say. It's like done by a factory. So it's like not organically placed, and you can just tell that it's not real, it's fake. So I want to cover it up, and I'm going to be using this. It's called JB Weld Wood Restore Repair Putty, which is very much like Bondo. So we're just gonna pop the lid off here. This is a 2-part epoxy style putty, and 1 part comes in the can, 1 part comes in a tube. Once you mix them together, it starts to harden up pretty quickly, and it'll be pretty much hardened within about 15 to 20 minutes, but it's not really workable anymore after about like 2 or 3 minutes, I want to say. So you've kind of got to either work very quickly if you are making quite a bit at a time, or work in smaller batches as you kind of work your way around to make repairs. This is great for filling in old hardware holes if you want to replace them, or like put new hardware holes in different places. This is great for deep gouges and scratches, or for my sake, they've got, I mean, it's kind of like a deep gouge in the top of the dresser, the sides. The drawer fronts do have them as well, but I am going to be doing something else on top of the drawer fronts, so I'm not going to waste my Bondo in filling those in, because they're going to be covered up, so you're not even going to be able to tell. So I just went ahead and put the second cream hardener portion together. We're gonna mix it up, make sure it's all one color. It's good to wear gloves when doing Bondo because it is a little bit toxic. So, you know, getting it on your skin isn't the best for you. Plus I just did my nails, so I'm trying to protect those as well. So once you've got like a consistent color, which I might need a little more cream hardener, then you're just going to apply it liberally to the area. You kind of want it overflowing a tad bit so that it fills the entire spot. Okay, I've got my Surf Prep sander and a 180 grit sandpaper, all connected to my vacuum dust extractor over here. We're gonna sand vac the Bondo that I put on, as well as just scuff sand the entire surface, give it a little bit of tooth and roughness in order for the primer to adhere well. Sanding is finished. I'm wiping all the dust back, and then we're gonna start to work on the drawers. So on the fronts of the drawers, I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of texture. I've done this one other time, and it was actually for a client, so I'm excited to kind of see how this method sells in my area, just as a project that I've done, like when I go sell it on Facebook Marketplace. And that is to use a bamboo mat that has these fluted looking lines, and cut it down to size, put it in the inside of my drawer here, and that just kind of adds a little bit of texture, kind of like the fluting that's so popular right now in furniture. So I have a little bit left over. I have some other on order because this is definitely not going to be enough for all of the drawers, but we can get started with what I do have. So I need to measure my area here. We're gonna put it right on the inside of the trim pieces of the drawers. I think that this style of drawer, where it has kind of an inserted area, is the best for these types of looks, but it could also be just fine on like a flat drawer as well. Like I said, this dresser is such a blank space that you can really do anything with it. So this one looks like it is going to need to be exactly 26 inches across. And then for the height, like 9 inches. Okay, so that's actually pretty good. That means that we don't have to do any like weird numbered cuts. Now the only thing is I'm hoping that we can get a cut maybe that's 26 inches and we won't have to cut one of the bamboo pieces in half, but we'll see. I'm gonna just kind of rip the trim pieces off of the bamboo just so that we know how much we're working with here. And then since this was connected with some thread and there are holes, I'm definitely going to be cutting off the area that had the holes. And I don't really need to get rid of this side piece. Okay, and it does have a backing, so it's all staying together pretty well from this backing. I didn't remove it last time and I just don't feel like there's a need to remove it. So I'm not going to take the backing off. I think that's a little extra work for me. So we're going to be measuring out the 26 inches. And I'm gonna go from this side since it's a cleaner edge. The only other thing that I could do would be to cut it to the closest one and then kind of line it up in the center and it would have like edges, which I don't really like the look of that either. I want it to fill the whole thing. So I think I'm just gonna go with it and we're gonna attempt to cut this. But if I do that and I mess it up, I didn't order enough extra to be able to do these two drawers again. So we're really winging it on this one, but that's okay. I think I'll cut that first and then we'll cut the 9 inches the opposite way and we'll use a miter saw for that. So I'm gonna grab a utility knife to kind of cut this right down the middle. Got it cut lengthwise to 26 inches. So now I'm rolling it up nice and tight so that we can cut it all at once with the miter saw. And you want it tight so that you can kind of help lessen the splintering that could occur. And then I'm going to use some painter's tape to tape right over where I want to cut, again, to help with hopefully lessening some of the splintering that can occur. So I've got my line, I can see the line through the tape. I'm gonna pull it nice and tight. And then here's the other side. That's right where I want to cut it with my miter saw. And we'll have two 9-inch pieces right here. You know what I didn't factor in actually? Good thing I caught this right now. I didn't factor in the holes. I said I was gonna cut those off. That would not have been great. I would have had to fill them all in. Okay, hold on. Restart. Okay, I think I'm gonna go cut the holes off and then we'll remeasure to where I need to actually cut. But I'm gonna go ahead and do the painter's tape on the edges then so I know that I'm cutting the edges off. This bamboo mat is a really great and more cost efficient option than the oak pole wrap that you may see a lot of people using. I will say, like, the oak pole wrap, I haven't personally used it, but I do know that it is very high quality. It's made of oak, so it's going to be higher quality than the bamboo mats. But like I said, this gives you a similar look for a lot cheaper, like on a budget, so. Okay, the moment of truth. Take this tape off and we're gonna hope that it fits. Okay, I think I need to cut a little bit more off of this piece that I cut like half of. Other than that, we're pretty even across the bottom and the top. So once I do that, then it'll sit nice and flush inside of there. I think it's literally like an 1/8 of an inch maybe. There we go. We're good on that one. Let's fit the other one before we glue. I am going to now get these glued down, and this is like water absorbent, so we've got to be a little bit careful because it can kind of soak up the wood glue a lot. So I don't want to put too much wood glue to where it's like making the bamboo warp, but I want to put enough to where it sticks. So that's something to just keep in mind. And then also I'm going to want to put something heavy across the tops of these 2 drawers to really make them lay flat and again help not warp over time when it is drying. And the rest of the bamboo mat should be in the mail and coming tomorrow. So my plan is to let this dry overnight, glue those on tomorrow, and then we'll be able to prime and paint, and it should be a quick, easy project. Okie dokie, it is the next day and my bath mat came. We're gonna get it opened up, measure and cut so that we can get this glued down onto the drawers so that it can kind of start drying before we prime. So I would recommend that whatever drawers you do this on, whatever dresser, that you kind of measure before you buy this, because it does come in several different sizes, and I measured like the 6 drawers that I needed to cover with this, and then that's kind of how I took the measurements to make sure that this one was going to be big enough for the rest of what I had. But you might as well order only as much as you need instead of, you know, ordering too much. This is what we have, and we need 6 drawers worth. So honestly, at this point, I hope I got enough. 6 1/4. Yep, wait, yep, looks like we're gonna have enough. Okay, so I think I'm gonna cut them to size lengthwise again like I did yesterday, and then we'll cut them with the miter saw. All right, the bamboo mats are dry onto the fronts of the drawers, and much like the surface of the dresser, I also am gonna go ahead and sand the bamboo mats as well, just to get a little bit more grippy. They're kind of glossy. They do have a little bit of texture, so that'll really help, but I'm just going to kind of smooth everything out, and then also kind of focus on the edges where there's some splintering wood too. So I'm gonna use my 180 grit and go to town. It's prime time. I'm gonna be using the Wise Owl 1 hour enamel. Well, no, this isn't the 1 hour enamel. This is the primer. It's the stain eliminating primer. It is a color like a dark gray color. So I'm gonna get this on the entire dresser and the drawers before we paint. This is going to help eliminate any stain or bleed through that may come through, and then also just give us an even playing field across the whole dresser. There's areas that is like more of a raw wood, there's areas that still has the finish on it, and then there's areas with the Bondo. So primer just kind of helps even everything out, and then we'll get a flawless finish once we get our paint going. Always, always, always strain your paint if you are going to be using a paint sprayer, because you don't want any chunks, especially on older cans, but even with new paint, sometimes the colors can like chunk together, and so it's just important to strain your paint down so that you are able to go spraying with no chunks and no having to stop and figure out what's going on with your paint sprayer. I have a little less than half of this can left, and I'm like really hoping that it's enough for this whole dresser. This is all I've got. I do have some other primers that I can use as well, but I would like to use this kind, so we're winging it. Piece of furniture is ready to be painted. After the primer dried, I did a quick scuff sand with just a sponge sander, and then I also drilled all of the hardware holes. I just measured right where I thought they should go, and we're ready to paint. I like to do the hardware holes during the priming step so that I don't mess up any of the paint job at the end. I'm gonna be using the Wise Owl 1 hour enamel. The color is dark mahogany. I'm excited for this. I haven't used a color like this, I don't think, ever. It's so pretty, and I think this is the perfect piece for it. And then the hardware that I have, I can't wait to show you. I can't wait to see it myself. The same thing I did with the primer, I'm gonna use my strainer straight into the spray gun. By the way, I did have enough primer. This paint is crazy. I love using high quality paints, and Wise Owl is definitely top tier in my opinion. Usually I can see like what we call flashing when it's still wet, and then it typically goes away when it's dry, but I can't see any flashing, which just basically means like the stripes that you might see. Wise Owl, I don't know what they've done with their paint, but it is great. It's enamel, so it's gonna be scratch resistant. like water resistant, and then it just has such great self-leveling qualities that it's so flawless. It's crazy. So we're gonna let this dry, and then we'll come back for coat number 2, because there are some areas, especially in the cracks of like the bamboo areas, that need second coats. But this color is cool. Okay, I am adding the new hardware, and the original nail screws that came with it don't fit, because I think probably because I added that bamboo. So there's like a little bit of, you know, more texture that it has to go through, or more thickness. So I found some longer screws, and you can typically cut longer screws down if they have the, I don't know what they're called. I don't know all the scientific names, but they look like this. And then you can take some clippers and you can cut them down to size. So I've got the size on this guy, and I'm just gonna cut 2 of the rings off so that it's more of a suitable size to fit in this drawer. And beware, because it could go flying. And then we just use that. Now it's the perfect size for the new hardware. I was gonna use this hardware on a different project, but didn't end up using it on the project, and I had 10 exactly, so I didn't have to like buy, I mean, I bought them at one point, but had these on hand, and I think that they're the perfect color. They're like a brass, but it's not so yellowy gold, and I really like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that same thing with all the rest of the drawers. Bada bing! Here is the final dresser, you guys. It's definitely a new top favorite. I think the color is what is just setting it apart from a lot of the pieces that I do. I've never done a color like this. I think that it's just so pretty, but it also is going to take a specific look in someone's home. So it's gonna take a specific person, as a lot of the pieces that I do take. But it's so good. The hardware is so pretty against the purplish color, and it can be really, it's like a chameleon color in different lighting. It's kind of dark purple, but then also gives off a little bit of some browner tones depending on the lighting and things like that. So I'm gonna link all of the Wise Owl products down below for you. And this paint is super, super, super durable. Like I said, it's an enamel paint, so it's scratch resistant. It really hardens very well in a shorter amount of time. Typically it takes paints, you know, up to 30 days to cure fully. This one takes 7 days, but within that first hour that you even apply it, it already is like a significantly amount cured. So that's something to keep in mind when you're choosing out your paints. There's so many awesome colors to choose from as well. And then the stain blocking primer that I use is Wise Owl 2, and it just blocks all the stains, makes sure everything adheres really nicely. I love the way that this one turned out. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers on this piece. I originally got it for $75, not too bad of a price considering the shape that it was in. And again, I like to choose dressers that are like maybe $100 or less for like a single long dresser like this. And then between, for the bamboo, the texture that I added here, those mats cost about $30 depending on how much you need. So that just kind of elevated this piece a lot. The fluting is really in style right now, and especially if you've got like already framed out drawers, it's a fun element to add so that you're not just constantly painting the piece as is and just making it a new color. Sometimes it's fun to add a little bit of flair, a little bit of style, and so that's why I chose to add in that fluting, and I think it really elevated the look of this dresser as a whole. Next, the paint and primer. I used about half of the paint that I had, and then, you know, I only had about this much primer. So total about $45 worth used on this piece. The hardware was about $30 for all 10 pieces. And then the miscellaneous costs that I always like to factor in there, like cleaning and sandpaper, Bondo, different things like that. Those all add up, so it's important to factor that into the cost as well. So we're all in at a total of $190 for the cost of this piece to get it to what it looks like now. And again, I am absolutely loving it. I have it listed on Facebook Marketplace for $750, which I think is a very fair price. It's a very solid piece. The drawers roll in and out very nicely. It's all clean. So it is going to take that right buyer. It's been listed for a week and no bites just yet, but I'm confident that if I wait it out, it will attract those right buyers. Thank you guys so much for watching. We've got a really awesome video planned for next week that's all about spraying for beginners, so be sure and get subscribed down below so that you can be the first one to know about when that video goes live next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the flip side.